Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I don't know how you got here, but I do hope that you'll stay until the end of this video because in this particular video, we're actually going to check out one of my ongoing projects. I'm going to show you guys what's going on site as it's being constructed. Just a little background for some context. So typically, I don't go to site that often. I actually do love going to site. I enjoy putting things together. I enjoy feeling the textures. I enjoy watching how things are done, and I'm pretty much a hands-on kind of architect. I really like, getting into the grit of things. But to be quite honest, construction is very is a very stressful endeavor, and I I'm more into the design rather than the actual construction work. So mostly I like check how the quality of the works are going and the building. And just for bit more context, so for this particular project, so I designed this house, but I offered that those services to the client to provide quality assurance inspections like once a week. But unfortunately, they did not. They chose not to avail, which is fine. And furthermore, I did suggest that they should hire a contractor to so they won't stress out too much, which they opted not to do as well. So we're actually going to check out this what's going on at the site, and it's going to be quite interesting because I feel like I'll have a lot to say. This was like a few weeks ago actually, so I don't recall everything that I want to point out, but let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so this is the site. Um, we're gonna stop right here. So I just want to point out here. So they have these three mounds back here. I'm not sure if that's debris or stones, but we have two mounds here that seem like sand. I'm not sure if there's a difference between the sand. I mean, like this one seems a bit more like there's a bit more moisture in it, but overall they're both sand. The reason I stop it here is because they don't have a sand sifter. Wala silang bistay, which is interesting to me because they've already started laying concrete hollow blocks. They've already started laying CHB, but they don't have a sand sifter. And as I can see here, there's a bunch of stones in the sand. And the reason they should have a sand sifter is because when they lay CHB, they have to make like a paste out of the concrete, which has to have like it has to be more smooth. And for those of you that don't know, the four main ingredients of concrete are cement, sand, gravel, and water. But if you don't want it to be too rough, you just need it to be smooth enough so you can lay CHB or plaster. And if you don't have mortar, and like in this instance they don't have mortar, then all you'd have to do is simply remove the gravel. Because what the gravel does is it's to make the concrete it's to fill up the space in the concrete. And it doesn't need to be that thick when you're making mortar or plaster. So uh, it kind of sticks out to me a bit. There in the center, they have a motorized cement mixer. Um, Here in the Philippines, this is like a very normal setup. So it's really hot in the Philippines, so they normally set up some sort of makeshift shade, which is completely fine with me. But what kind of bothers me is how messy it is. And I'm not sure if they have like a safety officer or something. I don't know, but so like I mentioned earlier, the client opted not to get a contractor, which is completely fine. You technically speaking, you don't need a contractor. You just need the site to be, keep going. but the way it's set up is very messy. You have these two metal tubes over here, metal pipes. I don't know why. Why don't they just don't lay them down instead? They're not supporting anything. They're not meant for any particular purpose. You have you have all these debris. You have this plank here. You have I don't know what these are all for. From what I can see, we got one guy here putting concrete into the bucket, and from my understanding, is he's gonna pass it to this guy, and then he's gonna pass it to that guy, and he's gonna pass it to that guy. And like I said, it's not really concrete. It's more like a plaster or mortar. That way they can lay the concrete hollow blocks, the CHB. But this is too slow, man. They should have prepared like this guy should just prepare a bunch of concrete to be plaster mortar to begin with, so they can move more fluidly. Um, so I want to point out that this is like I believe this is sometime after around 2:30 p.m. 1400 hours. The pace is like it's really slow, and I don't know. It's kind of giving me anxiety. I I don't know what's going on here. Are they using this to sit on? Why is this there? So I used to work under a contracting business. Contractors. I used to work under contractors, right? So I used to work for contractors. Uh, and what I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was more like quality assurance. I was always on site to make sure that things were going according to plan. And uh, I handled a lot of things when I was on site. Like I made sure that everything was going according to plan. I made sure that all of the finishes were of a certain level or grade. I made sure that the workers were always doing their job properly. Made sure everybody was safe. I handled payroll. I handled scheduling. I did the toolbox meetings. I did everything from the moment I got to site to the moment even after I left. I'd handle everything. And one of the things that I really pride myself in is how well I kept the site clean. I've seeing this site is kind of giving me a bit of OC because it's really messy. There's a lot of things that they could have put to the side. There's a lot of garbage and debris that they can put aside, put away. And then another thing that I also did when I was working under contractors is I was in charge of buying materials. I point that out because right here you can see a bunch of studs, and I don't know why they have these studs already. They're not doing any walls, they're not doing any ceiling finishes. So basically these studs are getting damaged as they're just sitting there. Like there's a chance that they're not even under shade. So if it rains and then it becomes hot later on in the day, they'll start to rust. And I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. Then over here, so the way they set up the metal pipes, I mean it's not wrong, but it's also kind of messy. Um, I don't want to say anything else about that. So we have the metal sheets for the slabs, and then we have a lot of things going on here. There's still a lot of CHB laying around. There's a lot of metal pipes. They're not really well organized. And I feel like this is not okay. So when I made the plans, there was a certain way that I laid out the wiring and the piping so that they could be easily accessible at the same time they wouldn't be embedded into the concrete or the slab. or they wouldn't be embedded into the walls or the slabs, which it's kind of it's not their fault because, like I said, they don't have anyone technically in charge, so they don't have anybody reading the plans to them and telling them how to do it. But seeing this is really messy because this is not how I intended them all to be exposed. Or I intended them all to be exposed, but I didn't intend them to be embedded in any of the walls or concrete. There's actually supposed to be like a space between the walls and the slab where they would run through. So, like this right here, it's not supposed to be embedded. Um, I don't know what to say about that. Another interesting thing is they started finishing the walls. Like they didn't even finish the form of the building yet. So you can tell that they don't exactly they don't have a plan laid out, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault at all, but uh it's it's kind of a waste of materials as well because since this is being exposed to the weather, then they're going to have to refinish it later on. So I'm not even sure if they already applied skim coat, but it seems like they already have because this surface is way too smooth. They have, and like I said, they haven't even finished the whole structure yet. So for them to start doing finishing works is way too early. I'm guessing that's debris, but I'm not sure, and it should be set aside. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm getting too much anxiety from watching this. The concrete. So this is concrete. I believe it's concrete, but I don't know why it's. So when you store concrete, you're actually supposed to elevate it from the ground because what happens is if it's touching the ground, it starts absorbing more moisture from the ground. And the bag that's on the very bottom, of course, will absorb that moisture, and then the concrete, I'm sorry, when you're storing cement, not concrete. So you're supposed to store the cement bags above the ground, like you're supposed to elevate it. If it touches the ground, it starts absorbing the moisture from the ground. And the bag on the very bottom is going to start to harden because when cement is mixed with water, that's what starts the catalyst of making it into uh, a harder material, solid material. Sorry. And this is the master bedroom. Once again, there's a lot of stuff going on. So we can already tell that the workers are all stay in because there's a lot of hammocks set up all over the place. There's nothing with them being stay in, but um, I'm not really too happy about how they're setting up their own quarters everywhere. Like they just sleep wherever they want to sleep. And it's fine, but they should have been more isolated. So like right here in the this is the master bathroom. I have a lot of comments, but I'm not gonna go into it. It just stressed me out. So as you can see on some of the columns also, they started chipping at them. That's because it seems like they were planning on starting to apply plaster everywhere. And when you're applying plaster on a surface, it has to be rough or else it will just peel off. So they have to chip the columns in order for it to stick on there, which they don't have to do for the CHB because it's already a rough surface. And we can already tell that they started plastering a lot of the walls, like right there. They started plastering it. But I don't know why they started so soon. And I don't understand why it's so messy still. Another thing here I'm gonna point out is the columns and the beams are kind of messy as well. You can't see it really here because my head's in the way. There we go. You can see here on this beam, So there's these gray patches. I believe they applied epoxy here. The reason they applied epoxy is because this beam probably started to crack. Um, I actually had a discussion with one of the workers here because I saw that one of the beams kind of they didn't like fully pour the concrete into it because they like ran out of concrete while they were pouring. So hindi kompleto yung buhos nila no. So what happened is they had to pour another batch of concrete into that beam, right? And what happened is they had to slant the first portion, and then when they poured the second portion, it would fall over that slant. Now, my problem with it was that the cracks between that slant is was really big, and uh, we kind of had this. I had this discussion with the worker, and it kind of came to a point where I understood what they were trying to say, like why it was poured like that, but they didn't understand my point. Was that the crack was too big? It was too thick, you know. Uh, So what they're actually supposed to do in order to make sure that like there's not that many cracks is they're actually supposed to have what's called a vibrator. And no, it's not the toy. It's a tool, okay? The vibrator goes into the concrete and then it'll vibrate the concrete and it will make the concrete start settling and being more compressed, letting out a lot of the air. And that's what will make that'll make beams and columns more sturdier. But I'm not sure if they did that properly. They did mention that they had the tool, but they didn't like it doesn't seem very evident in the works. And another thing is like a lot of the beams and the columns seem a bit wavy. So here as we go up the stairs, it's also very rough. Okay. This guy here laying the CHB, I'm a bit stressed out about the way he's going about it. Now, I'm not quite sure of his skill level, okay? But usually we should have them lay out like a nylon line. Oh, it's right there actually. Oh, so they did lay it out. Okay. So they lay out a nylon line from one end to the other, and that's how they know that the CHB is going to be level. But considering that he does have a line, kind of, it's probably just not well uh, well laid out. So here on the terrace, we have more debris going on. I'm kind of shocked at how chill these guys are, to be honest. They are way too chill for this hour. Like this guy has his hands behind his back. This I understand they're waiting for the concrete, but it's not it's a waste of time. I'm not sure I'm not sure how much they're being paid because I do believe that, you get what you pay for, but at the same time, uh I'm not really feeling their motivation. But then again, it's not their house, so I can understand. But sometimes, like, there's a certain pace that I try to keep workers on when I'm handling construction projects, and they're actually moving way below that pace. Like, this is way too chill. You'll actually see here. This guy is just standing there. He's just standing there. Oh, there's that line again. So this is how we check if the CHB is level. Yeah. I find it interesting too because, okay, this right here, this is actually supposed to be open. But they built up a wall. This is supposed to be open to the living area. So right now we've seen at least three workers that are way, way, way too chill. those three workers could be put here to break down this wall. Now, I want to point out that the reason that I had to go to site this day is because so the client did not avail of my services for quality assurance inspections, which is fine. But as the project construction went on, they started noticing small things going on, right? And one of the things was like this being built here, the wires, the plumbing, they weren't going as I said they should have gone when I was discussing it during the design phase, right? And now they really got stressed out because a wall was built here when they know that it's supposed to be open to the living area. So this is when they decided, okay, we need him to check the site. So they contacted me and I went there. They agreed to my fee, right? So I went there and I saw everything going on and I explained to them because the funny part was my whenever I make plans, right? I'm very meticulous and I can say 99% of my plans are normally like complete and have all the details done and everything. So this wall right here, it's so clear in the plan that it's supposed to be just a guardrail, glass guardrail. But the fact that they built a wall just shows that they didn't have the experience to lead like a full construction project. And since they didn't hire a contractor as well, they don't have anyone to turn to in order to take care of the project. There's like so much going on here. It's such a mess. Like I don't understand why they have this scaffolding set up and nobody's even here. I'm upset. So with that room, there's another three workers that they're sitting there. They're not doing anything. Do something. Right there, two more workers. This guy's smoking. This guy is just sitting there. What is he doing? Do something. Oh man. Okay. There are so many workers not doing anything. It's I don't know. I think it's just overall it's just not they don't have any leadership and it's not really their fault. So let's go back down the stairs. Can't really see the concrete, can we? But you can see there, it's like right on the floor. They didn't elevate it. I don't know. This is the utility area. Once again, there's another hammock. Oh man. So I don't understand why they started plastering the walls. It's the man. Right there. So this is supposed to be the electrical room. When I design projects, I make sure that it's very complete. And so the electrical room here should have four panel boards. It should have four. Um, how do I know this? I was I had a lot to do with I designed everything, you know, and I had a lot to do with the research and discussion on how to set up the electrical panel boards. And it bothers me because it's really heartbreaking that I put a lot of my heart and soul into this project so that everything would work out, smoothly when I planned it out. And that's how I do all my projects. Like, I'm very, very meticulous. The way I plan it out, it should be, like more or less perfect. Okay. I'm not saying like I'm that perfect, but I'm saying like there is like very, very small chance that there should be that many errors. And I know for a fact there should be four panel boards. When I discussed it with the workers on the site, they acknowledge that it is in my plans that there are four panel boards, but I don't know how they intend to set up the wiring now, especially since they already did it all wrong. Because, like I said, the electrical layout, all of the wires are just supposed to go within the portion. There's the solid wall, and then there's a certain thickness of drywall where all the wires go through. And then also in the ceiling where all the wires will go through, there's a certain thickness, and that's also where all of the plumbing and drainage pipes were supposed to go. But I'm not sure. They admitted that they're not really quite that adept in like reading plans. So, and by the time they figured it out, it was already too late. And what ends up happening is like it's like there ends up being a waste of materials. And the way they keep the site, it's such a mess. I can't. Another interesting thing is I'll show you guys in a bit is so I designed this house. Okay, I know every part of this house. When I went to the site, I did look at the plans and stuff. But my first walk around through the site, um, I pointed out a lot of things that I understood to be how I designed it. And the workers were like, "No, we didn't see that, blah blah blah." Okay. So at that point, I asked them to show me the plans, and uh, as sure as I was, there it was on the plan. Like I said, there was only one thing on the plan that I wasn't completely sure about, and then I gave the answer while we were on the site. Now, the client, when they asked me to design the house, we had a certain discussion of how much it would cost, right? So our contract was based on the size of the house. Okay, we had an agreement that I would design a house for this big, and anything bigger than that, they'd have to pay for my fees. They'd have to pay additional fees. What ended up happening for this house is I designed it already, okay? And they kept asking for it to get bigger and bigger, and they kept asking for more and more, okay? And like I said, we only agreed to this size. And the worst part is, I'd like to also add that we agreed for this size of a house for the span of 3 months, I would finish all the drawings, which I did. But the problem is they kept asking for more, and they didn't want to pay more, and they didn't want to give more time. And I'm not quite sure. Um, I'm not quite sure as to why. To be honest, I just think they don't understand the amount of work that I have to put in to do to do these kind of projects, and I'm not sure they understand how to uh, deal with these kind of works like contracts because this is like the first house they're having built. It's really big, and I I I want to think of it positively. Like they thought that maybe it's easier than it looks. Okay, maybe that's what they thought. And that's why when they kept asking me to build it or build more to it, add more to it, and then they didn't really want to pay additional fees. They thought it was going to just be easy, which is not it's not easy. It's a lot of work, especially when the drawing is already done and then I have to redraw it again. So the first few times I let it slide, but after a few more times they start asking for more things. I do have to start pressing that I can't give all my time for this project because as it stood, I do have my regular job and then I did this on my spare time, which is about like 9 hours a night for 3 months. Like I didn't really have any days off because not only was I designing the house, I was also designing all of the utilities and how they'd all work around into the building and how they'd all be clean. And furthermore, I had to do the research on like certain materials, and then I had to like input that into the design. I had to design all the doors and windows. I had to design. I was working on the architectural interiors, all of those things by myself. For a project this big, To be honest, the amount of money I should have been making was should have been enough for myself and at least two draftsmen. But let's just say that I gave a hefty discount. I'm not going to go into any further into it, but it was my understanding that they would understand that this project, I'd work on it, I'd give them what they need. My only request in return, aside from the proper payment, was a bit of, you know, bit of understanding. Like, if you're going to ask for such a big discount, it's not bad, okay? If you're a client and you have an architect working for you and you ask them for a giant discount and they're kind enough to give it to you, my only the only thing I'll ask of you is that you respect them enough and like don't give them a hard time because they're already doing a lot of work for you to make this thing become a reality. Now, with that said, I don't have any ill will against anybody in this project. It's all fine. What happened was when it started getting built, they realized that the ceiling was at a certain height, which we had already discussed in our numerous meetings before. So now they wanted to make it higher, and I offered my services once again to revise the drawings, but once again they'd have to pay fees because there's a lot of things that would get affected if I revise the height. They didn't want to do that, so it's fine. What ended up happening is they asked me for like a solution where I wouldn't have to do any drawings. So I told them what they could do was they could multiply the elevations by a certain percentage. Okay? And that would only affect the heights of the walls and the stairs. Okay? Uh, Now, the problem with that is that wouldn't account for all of the cabinets and all of the shelves and all of the doors and windows that I had already designed. That would mean that everything would get stretched. And for them, they said they'll just keep all of the doors and windows as is, their size as is, and then for all of the shelves, they'll just have them shelves, cabinets, drawers, what have you. They'll just have them stretched. So you can see in the stairs actually. So the layout of the stairs didn't change. It's the same layout. The only thing that changed is the height. So the thing when I designed the stairs, I made them somewhat low height, so it's easier to scale, easier to walk up. But when we times it by the certain percentage, it made it a bit higher, so now it's a bit more difficult to walk up them. And it's kind of the part of being, it's kind of part of being an architect, you know. If you can't, if you can't give the best solution, you have to give the solution. You have to give a solution that's not bad, even though it's not the best. I don't know if that makes sense, but you have to give a solution that's safe. The reason I bring that up is because the elevation of these windows and doors, they're actually supposed to be like, if we count the CHB here, one, two, three, they should only be like one CHB, and that's where like all enough space for all the wires to go through. But so with the added percentage, we add these two, so that's roughly about 12 inches, I believe. And it's kind of upsetting, but it's heartbreaking for me as a designer because like I said, I put a lot of heart and soul into this design, and for it not to be followed as I drew it, as I planned it, it's upsetting, but we just have to move on. So here you can see I have like the downspout pipes are actually quite big. The diameter is 4 inches. I did that purposely. That way they'd be easier to maintain. But they don't technically have to be this big. But the thing is, I also wanted them to be hidden. So I made them bigger so they'd be easier to filter, like they'd be easier to drain out, and it's easier to like if you can stick you can stick a pipe down them in order to push any dirt that gets stuck in them. Because if I had used a smaller size, then they might get, clogged every now and then. And the reason I also had to use them make really thick is because if you look at the span of the roof, it's really long. Okay. I'm not too sure about this side. I feel like it's a bit more narrow than my plan had it, but it's there. So they have all this debris. It's just there. I don't get what these guys are doing. I honestly, they're there, but they're not. What are they doing? Oh man. And also, what is this? What is this? What's going on here? I don't know if it's a slide down garbage or what. This is their temp facil. Temp facil, short for a temporary facility. Uh, that's where all the plans are being held and stuff, and all the tools should be kept actually. But I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm getting stressed out by watching this video. I have a lot to say actually, but I just don't. I'm holding back. I'm holding back. S- Oh my gosh, that concrete. And then there's more studs here. And there's more chill guys. These guys are just super chill. The studs are going to waste. They're just. I don't know. Okay. So there you have it. There's a lot going on here. I have a lot of things that I could say, but I'm trying to be nice as possible. But it's kind of what you expect when they don't hire a contractor. Uh, it just has they have to work with what they have, with abilities they have, and also like I'm not even taking into consideration yet how much the workers are being paid. So like you get what you paid for when you get what you pay for when it comes to construction. I mean, if you imagine interestingly speaking, okay, like for example, like pipes, uh, it's not really such a big deal if you get a certain brand, one or the other. What matters is the series. Like each pipe has the same level of series, let's say. You get for drainage pipes, you have this brand A, brand B, right? Both of them will have the same sets of series, and both of those series have to pass certain level of test in order to be used for construction and sold to the market, right? So technically speaking, it doesn't really matter which material you buy if one is more expensive than the other. Technically speaking, because both of them pass the test, unless they're fake materials, then both of them will pass that test. It's the same thing with like insulation foam or copper pipes or what have you. They have to pass certain tests in order to be sold to the public market. Now, where it differs is how it's installed. So you can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't have, the know-how to put it all together, then that's gonna definitely cause some problems. Right now, we're gonna check out the actual render. So, just a little side story. The reason this render is so pixelated is because um, the client was upset that there wasn't a video, and I told them specifically that there wasn't a discussion for me to make a video. If they want a video, they'd have to pay a fee, which they didn't want to pay as well. Once again, I'm not bad mouthing them, but since I wanted to just finish my part, I made them this video You can kind of see here everything that goes on. So this is the portion I was talking about where the CHB was erected, you know. It was supposed to be open to the living room. So all of this, I was supposed to design the whole like all of the architectural interiors as well, but uh, you have to understand like it takes a lot of time to do these kind of works, and it's also it takes certain level of system requirements, computers, laptops, what have you. It takes a certain level of programs, softwares. In order to do all of this work, especially by myself in a certain amount of time, it's really difficult. And even just to render like a video like this video itself, this pixelated video on my hardware took 1 day to make. and it's still okay, but it takes one whole day, as in not 8 hours day, but like I had to set up the scenes, I had to set up, like if I had done all of the architectural interiors, imagine how much time that would take. Just to do one area takes like another day. And then I also have to do the research on the area and the stuff. And like for the lights, I have to research what kind of lights, what kind of grade, or how bright. For the pool, I have to research filtration systems, where to set up the filtration systems, where to set up the like drainage for so it doesn't overflow. And then here we also have like interior materials like tiles, type of wood, type of paint, types of finishes. It's a lot of work, And in the first part, to do all of this, and then I also had to set up the utilities. Like I said, all of the utilities were hidden. Like the way you see it here, you won't see any of the downspouts, or you won't see any of the drains. You won't see any of the electrical wires, what have you. You won't see any of them. You're not supposed to see any of them because I had them all hidden, right? And that's how I intended the design to be. And then the way I designed it as well, it kind of makes me sad that it's not designed the way it should be. But that's how it is. Anyway, the reason I just wanted to share, like how, like the difference if you actually, it's not if you're going to spend millions on something as permanent as a house, adding a little extra thousands, 100,000s is not it's not gonna hurt you. In fact, it might even make the experience a lot better and a lot more assuring for yourself as a client. And also, if you're an architect or contractor or worker, you also have your responsibilities. Don't get me wrong. I can understand why there would be a lot of clients that would be kind of hesitant to hire an architect when there are stories also of architects that just like when they get the money, they run away and stuff like that. I mean, I worked for a project before where they hired a different contractor and what happened was the contractor just took off with all the money and then they never showed their face again. And then the structure was just left like half finished, not even half finished. So that's when they hired my boss's firm to continue the construction works. Then you can also see like the handling of materials is very very messy. Like earlier, I didn't point it out earlier. I was thinking about it, but there was like a material called phenolic board that was just laying on the wall, and it was already starting to get bent. And instead of because the thing about phenolic board is like the reason it works well better than just getting plywood. It's more expensive than plywood, but you can reuse it and it won't get damaged from because you use phenolic board to make formworks like the concrete beams and the uh, concrete columns. and you can use them repeatedly because they have this certain surface that allows them to like peel off of concrete easily after it gets dry. Whereas if you use just like regular plywood or other materials, it might get stuck or it might warp, and then the concrete would just start uh, start getting deformed. And that's why when I was looking at the beams and the post, I could see like some of them are kind of wavy because they weren't storing the materials properly. Um, I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I could point out that I didn't point out because I'm trying to be super chill. But I don't know. Overall, it's a fun experience. Don't get me wrong, but it's stressful. So we're gonna end this video here. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope you guys enjoyed. Uh, and with that said, always take care of yourselves. I hope we can always better ourselves. And bye bye.